Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Imperial Dane, with another Propagandacast for you, my marvelous viewers. And we have here today a 1 vs 1 on wrecked train. Yes, indeed. It is that nice piece of rail yard and with a bit of factories that is bombed out. And who shall be facing each other on this transportation map. And of course a few details of this map. We are seeing the victory points on a nice line. The western one being more protected alongside a low yield fuel point, whereas the other one has the only medium yield, but at the same time it's a lot harder to defend, whereas this one with the numerous building is much easier to defend. And of course we have the slightly less populated north compared to the south with a lot more dense urbanization, or at least factorization. Let's go have a look. Here in the south we have Mr. ArhsMiavz. Right, he's Captain Ars. Alright, that sounded wrong, very wrong. Oh, so wrong. We'll just call him Captain A then, since apparently Ars, yes, sounds just like something else. Brilliant. Captain A, 28th Infantry Division on the hunt as the Germans are retreating from Falaise and moving through Belgium. And who shall be holding the line? None other than Gulcasa, leading Sperrverband Gulcasa. Sperrverband meaning blocking force basically, and this is one of the types of ad hoc forces that Germans actually used during the war. The other one being Kampfgruppe, that was a bit more offensive oriented. The defensive version is Sperrverband. So there you go. And of course we are seeing Kettenkrats moving out, no Schwimmwagens for Gulcasa. Apparently that's all he can muster. The Sperrverband also tending to be a ad hoc force of whatever can be scraped together. Panzer Grenadiers moving out, and we see the barracks going up, so we'll most likely be seeing some riflemen as well. Possibly a jeep, but most likely riflemen. Yes, there we go. We see something lighting up, so that's probably that. And we see a logistic company coming up pretty fast. So we'll most likely be seeing some scout cars being used. That's a bit different. Scout cars being decent and right. They do a bit more damage than your light infantry half-track, but of course Panzer Grenadiers can't move around in them. They can't reinforce near them. And the sort of turret that the scout car has is a bit slow moving, but on the other hand, if you use them to support your Panzer Grenadiers, alright, they can in fact do quite a bit of damage. Of course, some players are prone to trying to use them like armored cars, and of course conveniently forget that they aren't equipped with auto cannons, but instead a small light machine gun, which can only do so much, plus the armor is pretty thin. There we go. Panzer Grenadiers on the move, and we see the Kettenkrat having secured a bit here on the east, apparently going for that rather interestingly, not perhaps securing some of this area, but straight here and for this medium yield fuel point. At the same time we are seeing the engineers moving towards this point, so they could easily become a point of contention, and we see the riflemen moving towards the center most likely. Shall also be interesting, in particular since there will only be one Panzer Grenadier team, and most likely scout cars all around for the Sperrverband, apparently managing to scrape together some of those from some reconnaissance battalion. Quite interesting, and there we go. Quite the same version as of course the armored car. The only difference was of course that one was equipped with an autocannon, the other wasn't. These tended also to be used as the sort of command variants with a larger radio aerial on it. Because again, yes, with a small machine gun you're not probably going to be doing most of the fighting, so they tended to do the sort of the command business, and then the autocannon equipped would actually do the fighting. But again, armored cars weren't really meant for frontline fighting. They were usually meant to penetrate behind the enemy lines and then do the reconnaissance from there and then break through from behind, while Panzer Grenadiers that were going for those reconnaissance battalions would actually do the fighting, take up the enemy's attention, and then the armored cars would slip through. That's usually how it worked. And there we go, armored car harassing, or scout car in this case, harassing these engineers. Certainly not a bad choice. We are seeing riflemen moving in from all sides almost. Certainly not going to end up well for this scout car if it is not quick to get out. And one engineer is down, and they are retreating, but the riflemen are awfully close. And there we go, turret very slowly turning. Of course scout cars can be used to seize territory as well, so they are quite handy as that. But there we go, two rifleman teams engaging the scout car, and already quite a bit of damage to that scout car, so we really need to get out of there before it's lost. Second scout car joining in though and opening fire on these riflemen who are out in the open and taking quite a bit of damage. Out in the open, the scout car can certainly do quite a bit, in particular since the second one is joining in as well. And now we have 2 light machine guns, and see, as you may notice now, the health is actually going down a bit, but they will really need some infantry support. Possibly that Gewehr 43 could be used to suppress one of the rifleman teams, which would really be advantageous instead of trying to use those panzer grenades to seize territory. And I'm certainly hoping, and no, he's instead getting a third scout car joining in here. And these two are continuing the hunt for the riflemen, doing a bit of damage but not really able to land anything decisive. Third scout car engaging these engineers, and we see a third rifleman team joining up here. This is not really going to end up well for these scout cars if they're not careful. Already one down to half health, in fact much less than that, 25%, and falling. And these riflemen are using this rubble for cover, so this is not going to end up well. These scout cars would need to actually flank them, and there we go, one. A lot of machine gun fire, but really not the best position. And now with the third rifleman team moving in, they are going to certainly be in a lot of trouble. And there we go, scout cars pulling out, damaged, and you know, no, and out of control, crashing, no, not into the victory point, but apparently very close to it. This one will also need to get out of there before those riflemen will knock it out. 3 riflemen down, not really a lot considering he's already lost 1 armored scout car, with the panzer grenadier looking in a slightly silly pose displayed on the front. Again, I would have recommended he actually moves those panzer grenadiers in to support the scout cars. Again, they're not really meant as frontline combat units. They're sort of there to perhaps support a bit, harass a bit, and run around on the edges. But we are seeing some further panzer grenadiers finally hitting the field, so not all bad. But right now those riflemen are certainly getting very bold, and they will be needed to be stopped rather fast and violently. Third panzer grenadier team hitting, so he's finally getting the idea that he also needs some infantry. Riflemen engaging, will they get suppressed? Apparently not. Further riflemen joining in, those scout cars will really need to get away behind those panzer grenadiers, and instead they're standing out in the open. Will they focus down these riflemen who are right in the middle of the road? Armored car out of control again. Oh, Gulcasa, not the best of luck with those scout cars. And we see a 4th one moving out now, so that's certainly a small platoon of scout cars. Riflemen taking a bit of damage, losing a few men. 1 team already on the retreat, so finally a bit of progress. Engineers moving in the west, that's certainly something those armored cars could deal with, while the panzer grenadiers are busy with those riflemen. And we see one getting upgraded with the logistic upgrade, giving it a bit of radio antennas. And riflemen standing out in the open while taking territory and under fire, not the best of position. Now scout cars joining in as well. 2 riflemen down in a very brutal volley. Further heavy losses, and they are retreating in great numbers. Of course, now the Kettenkrad and the scout car could perhaps take the rest of this area, while the panzer grenadiers then move towards the west and deal with those engineers. But we see a scout car certainly doing a bit of harassment, firing away with its light machine gun, hitting and killing an engineer. Certainly not bad job. We shall have to see how this continues to develop. We're seeing another panzer grenadier, so a 4 panzer grenadier team. That's finally something he could use. But we do see us applying it up, so I hope he's going to go for some sort of anti-tank asset, perhaps the Panzer Support Command, and get the anti-tank half-tank, because I suspect there'll certainly be some sort of armored cars. Engineers coming under fire, and we see the Panzer Elite are using their scout cars and Kettenkrads to begin really seizing territory, which is quite good, and will certainly get them a lot farther than just throwing away scout cars in combat like that and just trying to have them stand up to riflemen, which is not necessarily the best thing without infantry. So the Americans have so far forced back into the base, but a fresh assault force is moving out. Plenty of riflemen, only 3 teams, which is certainly the acceptable minimum. And they're moving towards here. This medium yield fuel point is certainly a point of interest, since again it's certainly going to be the one that will throw off the most resources, and most likely he will be using this scout car to lock down here. But of course, with riflemen moving in, he might want to consider getting it out of there before it is lost, and instead moving those panzer grenadiers towards the east. Yes indeed, nicely done, Gulcasa, reacting to the threat as needed and using those scout cars to continue to seize territory, and of course they can hold off against engineers, so it's certainly not a bad thing. And with all riflemen in the east, things will certainly be looking alright. Panzer Grenadiers now on the march. Will they actually counter-attack and deal with those riflemen? Oh dear, scout car is in a bit of trouble here, opening fire while retreating, but will really need to get away and to somewhere slightly safer. Panzer Grenadiers engaging these riflemen. And we see the anti-tank half-track on the way. Riflemen engaging the Panzer Grenadiers out in the open. Sperrverband Gulcasa holding the line against the 29th and certainly managing to delay the Americans in their hunt for the rest of the Wehrmacht forces retreating towards Holland. Scout car though taking a bit of damage as the 82nd Airborne is called in for the hunt, dropping in their elite troops from above in the hopes of surprising the Sperrverband. But no such luck. Gulcasa is stronger than that. But I do suspect, there we go, armored car, and of course these might be equipped with recoilless rifles. Who knows? And the anti-tank half-track moving in from the north. Panzer Grenadiers really engaging the riflemen here, doing quite a bit of damage and forcing them into a full retreat, causing quite a bit of damage. But now the armored car is moving in. Anti-tank half-track firing away with its light anti-tank gun. And the Greyhound is hunting down the Kenkrat. No armored upgrades though, that's a bit interesting. It's rare that you don't see an armored car without the armored skirts. And a nice shot to the rear. Those armored cars will need to get out of there before they're knocked down. But destroyed engine immobilized. That armored car will certainly not be going anywhere. But those airborne will certainly ensure that this anti-tank half-track might not go anywhere either. And scout car was wrecked, did not make it out of there. Armored car looks like it will soon be finished. Anti-tank half-track trying to get away from those airborne, firing the last shot, knocking out the armored car, but the airborne knock it out with their recoilless rifles. Bit of a harsh loss so early for the Sperrverband, but they are certainly stuck troopers and they will hold on, instead using the half-track as cover and knocking out one airborne trooper. And we see the fresh riflemen are moving out again, not keen on giving up. And now the scout car is locking down this area, granting extra fuel. And we are seeing an upgrade here, a second anti-tank half-track. And we might even see the Panzer IV arrive. Would certainly be a good move. All of this infantry, and we are still not seeing him actually trying to use that suppressive fire and suppress those airborne. That can really make a difference. For example, as a suggestion, if your opponent is having a large assault force, then with, for example, some flamethrower engineers, then using the suppression fire to keep those behind while the others are charging into you, can, for example, make a bit of a difference. And now we are seeing